Unfortunately, it seems like we currently live in a society where stupidity and criminals are rewarded and people doing their jobs are being punished. And a great example of that would be how society reacts to these videos that they post on social media when someone gets pulled over for a simple traffic violation or is being arrested for a simple, not even being arrested, but just being talked to in regards to a simple misdemeanor, right? You'll see an individual get pulled over by a cop and they'll take out their camera, they'll set it up on their car dashboard, and they'll sit there and they just will not comply. The police officer will ask them for their driver's license. They'll say, "No, I'm not giving you my ID. I don't have to give you nothing. I don't have to comply. Why did you stop me? I don't care. I don't have to do nothing." And when the situation then escalates to where the police use some level of force to get the person out of the vehicle or whatever case may be, you can look you can look at those videos and look in the comment section, and what you would see is comments like, you know, "F those pigs," "The police are wrong," "File a lawsuit," different things like that. And very few people in those comment section would simply say, "Well, it was a simple stop, traffic violation. Why didn't you just comply?" Instead of trying to argue the case with the police officer, which that is not his job. He gives you the ticket, and we all know how it goes. We receive a ticket, we then go to court, and the judge reviews everything and says whether or not we have to pay the ticket or whether it's going to get thrown out. Especially if the officer doesn't show up, the case get thrown out. But for some reason, we we notice we'll praise these individuals who go on social media and post those videos of them not complying, and we're encouraging them to sue. And little do we realize, we as taxpayers, we're the ones paying these people money. We're the ones paying whenever a a case is filed, regardless if the person wins or lose. We as taxpayers, we're losing out on that because we're paying for the judge, we're paying for the courthouse, we're paying for that time, that office. You know what? Here's the funny thing, right? And I think we all have experienced this. How many times have you been pulled over by a police officer? They give you a ticket, right? And they give you for a ticket for something like a seatbelt, or a headlight not working, right? But that's the law. You have to wear your seatbelt. Your headlights have to be functioning. It's something silly, something small, but they're like, look, that's just the law. I got to do my job. They give you the ticket, and after they give you the ticket, they say, look, just show up to court, and you can get this thing thrown out. It's because they get paid regardless. If the tickets get thrown out, they get paid. If they have to go sit down in court, that's overtime for them. They're getting paid for that time when they sit down in court. So we as taxpayers, we're paying for all of this stuff. So imagine when we tell somebody, yeah, you don't comply with the police officer, you argue with them and let the situation escalate. And then we want you to go sue and go make millions of dollars. We as taxpayers, we're the ones paying for that. And I think that's what a lot of people don't get and a lot of people don't understand. And this is why I have a problem with stupidity and people when they're doing silly, stupid, and ridiculous things like not complying with a police officer, arguing with them over something so trivial as far as just providing your ID so they can verify who you are, you know? And another thing I got to say to these people, when you see lawyers, what I call these Instagram or social media lawyers going online and they're telling you, know your rights. You don't have to comply. You don't have to, you know, let them search your vehicle. You don't have to give them your driver's license. You don't have to agree to anything. You don't have to answer any questions. These lawyers know at the end of the day, if you did a traffic violation, right? And a police officer pulled you over, and you refuse to talk to them, comply with them, give them your driver's license, at that point, you're going to go to jail. And guess what happens? That's another client for the lawyers. So then the lawyers are not going to tell you how not to get arrested, which is simply, if a police officer pulled you over, comply with them, record the situation, comply with them. If any of your rights were violated, send us the video. We'll take a look at it, and then we'll go ahead and we'll take the case. They're not going to tell you that, because if you comply with them, then there's no reason for you to have a case, because there's going to be no escalation, right? So these lawyers online are not your friends. They're never going to tell you what to do so you don't get arrested. And so therefore, you can make it back home safely to your family. That's just the way it is. And if you don't understand that as an individual, then I think you have a lot to learn. Now, I sorry, I find that kind of funny because these people be like, I see these videos where the people are trying to like argue the case with the police officers. You do that with the judge, not with the police officer. All right. Um, where else can I go with this one? Um, it's kind of like it's to a point right now where I kind of feel like people fail to realize, uh, police officers are human beings, and if you get pulled over by a police officer and they ask you something very simple like providing your driver's license so they can identify who you are and you refuse, right? And you have nothing to hide. It was just a simple traffic violation or something like that. Then what happens is that officer will go on high alert because it's kind of like, dude, this could be something very simple. We could be done with this in 5 to 10 minutes and we both could be on our way. But yet you're being very combative. You're acting like you have something to hide, like you don't want me to do a background check on you because you might have a warrant for your arrest or something. So now the police are like, okay, you know what? Now we're gonna call in extra officers. Now we're gonna escalate the situation because you're making it too obvious that you may have something to hide. And this is the thing that I try to make people understand. Like these individuals, they're creating situations and they're creating situations where a simple issue will escalate. And then they want us as taxpayers to reward them for their stupidity or for their ignorance. And the fact that when you look on social media, you see so many people praising them and agreeing with them and cheering them on. I think that shows that we're in a very, very dangerous time because when something happens, who do we call? We call the police officers. We call law enforcement. You know, we expect these guys for the 45,000 or 35, yeah, 45, $50,000 base salary without overtime. We expect them to run at the bullets, run into danger, and put their lives at risk for us, right? And when they ask us for something very simple, we act like, oh, they're violating our rights and on all these other things. And I'm not even gonna get into the fact of if you were in a different country, how, the police officers of the different countries act. But I also want people to understand this. No profession, no matter how professional it's supposed to be, you're gonna have all good people, right? If you look at politicians, they're supposed to get in there and fight for the people. Some politicians start off with that ideal, but once they get into office, some of them get corrupted, right? Um, you have, and let's take one of the most sacred professions there is. You're a pastor, right? Most people become pastors because they want to help people. But if I'm a guy and I want to make easy money and I want people to just give me their trust, give me their money, put their wives or their children in my hands, you become a pastor. That's why you see all these mega churches blowing up all over the place. You see, because it just goes to show you no profession is going to be sacred. So you have people that become police officers because they actually genuinely believe in what they've been doing. It's something that they've been doing from generation to generation. They believe in it. They believe in law enforcement. And then you have some people who go in there because they sit there and say, hey, this is the easiest way I can make money through corruption. You also have some people that go into law enforcement because they're racist, and that's a way for them to exploit the system and go on a power trip, right? So I just personally feel like this. Your first interaction with that police officer, with that particular police officer, or any particular police officer, should be based on how you interact with them. So if a police officer comes up to you and they're like, hey, license and registration, I'll tell you why I stopped you, just hand it over to them. They didn't come up to you and was aggressive and kicking in your doors and calling you mother effer this and give me mother effing that. So why are you treating this police officer based off a bias that you perceive based on social media or whatever happened with someone else? Especially if that police officer is not that person who did that horrendous thing, like shot somebody who was unarmed or whatever the case may be. You can't treat every single person that way. If you are a black or brown person, so imagine if every single officer said, well, since we're going to treat every black or brown person like they're criminals. If you're a blonde person, they say, we're going to treat every blonde person like they're a freaking idiot. If you're an Arab or a Muslim person, they say, well, we're going to treat every single one of you guys like you're a terrorist. That's kind of like profiling. And I think the fact that we're putting all officers, if you are one of those individuals, let me clarify that. If you are one of those individuals that have this tendency of just looking at every single officer as what they call a pig or as the enemy, then I think, it just goes to show that, you have allowed people to come into your head and brainwash you and manipulate you into believing something that really is not the case. Because there are officers every single day that die in the process of saving people, not just getting shot by bullets. I mean, there's officers getting hit by cars, there's officers running into burning buildings, even though they're not firefighters. I mean, there are officers every single day putting their lives at risk for us as citizens for a measly $50,000 base salary. And why do some officers work so much overtime is because they need the money in order to survive, just like we do. It's just a job. It's a profession. It's a job. It's not their life. It's not who they are. And I have to say that because I'm a business owner myself, and I feel like, if we did not have law enforcement, I wouldn't have the business that I have now. I would not be able to drive the vehicles that I drive because if you look at certain countries, people are not able to drive luxury vehicles or open up businesses or do certain things because there's no law enforcement and crime is running rampant all over the place. At least here in America, I mean, our law enforcement is not perfect. But I think at the same time, we need to take a look at ourselves as a community and say, maybe, we also have something to do with that as well. Look at what we're doing. Look how we treat these officers, these people who put their lives on the line every single day for us as individuals. That's all I have to say in regards to that.